Some of the best moments that you can have as someone who plays video games is when you come across one of those games that was obviously put together on like a shoestring budget, something that on its surface looks like something that you would have absolutely zero interest in playing, something that's almost categorized by things that the average gamer is not looking for in a game. Low poly graphics, a short campaign, zero voice acting, an absurd, almost meme-like storyline, a simple, entirely MIDI soundtrack. And yet, despite all these conventional flaws, the game actually excels. And that's because all of those elements are actually used as strategies to elevate this game. By using all of these elements in a particular way, a game like that can be 10 times better than some of the biggest AAA games on the market. Discovering and playing one of those, that's one of the best moments you can ever hope to have as someone who plays video games. And of course, the game that I'm specifically referring to is Undertale. Playing Undertale feels like playing a strange dream, something unsettling and charming in equal measure, and you're not quite sure why it hooks you. What? This isn't Undertale. What the fuck's this then? This is Off. Now, a few weeks ago, this game rolled into my email inbox, and I was looking at it and I was like, oh, this is just an Undertale clone. It looks pretty cool. But after further research, it turns out that Undertale is actually an Off clone. Now look, I'll be the first to admit, I had no idea that Undertale sort of had a predecessor, had something that it was truly inspired by. We all knew that it was inspired by Earthbound, but where it shares Earthbound's quirky story and some wall-breaking humor, etc., what it really doesn't share with Earthbound is just its style, its vibe, its characters, just kind of everything about it, the way it looks. I thought all of that was fresh from the mind of Toby Fox. Turns out it's not at all. Toby Fox has spoken about how Off hugely inspired Undertale. And I know there's gonna be motherfuckers in the comments being like, how did you not know this? Trust me, I'm not alone. Most of us people who are out here fucking lauding Undertale, talking about how much we love it, we don't know about Off. So let me roll back just a second. What is Off? Well, Off is a cult RPG from 2008 that was crafted, built, and released in RPG Maker. It's created by a Belgian duo calling themselves Unproductive Funtime, and when it was released in 2008, it was only released in French, and Off didn't get an English fan translation until 2011. So forgive me for not knowing this game existed. You know, there's so many games out there on itch.io and RPG Maker and other game making platforms that most of us will just never experience and never come across. Us here, you know, sitting on the fringes, we just kind of get what's served to us. If something isn't hype, then people tend not to play it. Then even when something is hype, sometimes people play it for a little while and then it disappears off the face of the earth again. See, the thing is, down in the depths, in the deep cuts of the gaming world, some of these games exist for years before they catch any popularity. And then even when they do, sometimes it's a slow burn of popularity, and over the years they become more and more and more popular. Well, Off has been gradually growing this fan base. Like, people love this fucking game. People talk about it like it's one of the best games ever created. And yet, to play it, you had to download this zip file, and you even had to install fonts onto your PC so that the game could use these fonts within the game. So it never really got that proper release. But now, tomorrow, this game is finally getting the release it deserves, and hopefully people are going to get to experience this thing that inspired so heavily one of the best games ever created. And guess what? I've been playing it for the last week, so I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know about this game. And along the way, we're going to talk about whether it holds up against the thing that it inspired. Let's go. In Off, you play as the Batter. It's a guy in a baseball uniform. Your goal, simple.
Purify the world.
Your guide, a grinning cat that's kind of just slightly off. And your weapon, a baseball bat, obviously. And that's just the start of the weird. Like, wait till you're wandering around zones that look like the fever dream of a brutalist architect. High on acid. You're fishing metal from cows. You're strolling through oceans made of plastic, and it's all drenched in the soundtrack that makes the bizarre feel almost tender. Mortis Ghost, one of the creators, it turns out, was inspired by the ridiculous swagger of Killer 7, a game known for stylish chaos. That vibe? Oh, it shows. Now, flipping back to Undertale, what Undertale did so well, it carried all of this same atmosphere, but what it also did was it had an insanely unique combat system. It was beautifully simplistic, but something that just fits so well into that game. Now, as I was getting into OFF and I was playing the first couple of hours or so, one of the things I was dead sure that I was going to talk about in this review was how that was missing from the game. How OFF had all that atmosphere and all of that weirdness in spades, but the battle mechanics were simply a turn-based battle system. But boy, was I wrong. The further you get into OFF and the closer you get to the end, the deeper and deeper the game becomes. I'm trying to stay vague here because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but I also want you to know what this game becomes over its like 7.5 hour campaign, so that you don't run the risk of putting it down in that first hour. And it's not that the first hour's boring, the first hour's fine, but it is a shade of what's to come. What starts like a simple RPG made in RPG Maker, with turn-based boss battles, odd puzzles, and semi-animated hand-drawn cutscenes, it slowly peels away into something uncanny. By the final zone, OFF reveals its dark, sticky heart. It becomes nightmarish. It bends puzzles into existential commentary. It smashes the fourth wall, asking, what does violence in video games even mean? Does any of that sound familiar? You guessed it. Undertale. Undertale explores basically the exact same theme. However, OFF is definitely darker in my opinion. OFF as a game doesn't directly tackle the issue of violence in video games. Moreover, it uses narrative to explore themes of violence, player choice, and the nature of good and evil, which is very obviously meant to be a catalyst for interpretation for the player in the context of either video game violence or even real world violence. By now we've seen so many games that make you feel evil for playing a shooter. Undertale does this really well by making you name the character that you're going to play at the beginning of the game. Most of the time you put your own name in there, so you feel a personal attachment to that character. And therefore there's something deep, something underlying that makes you not want to kill the enemies that can't defend themselves. So when you do play a genocide run, it feels a bit sadistic. It's not an original concept, it's been done in many games before, and it's something that you could even describe as feeling a little trite. But OFF doesn't seduce you into any guilt. Instead, it separates you from Batter. You are playing the game. Batter is on a mission. It's not about blame, it's about what do we do when given a bat. So in many ways, Undertale actually feels like an answer to OFF. In Toby Fox's philosophical retro RPG, violence may be inevitable, but what happens when the game asks you not to? When the characters notice your actions and talk back to you? In the Undertale art book, Toby Fox actually credits OFF multiple times. Papyrus was inspired by OFF boss Dedan, Sans by the Judge, and everybody's favourite skeleton duo owes its bones to Mortis Ghost. So in order for me to kind of fully be able to review the video, it felt like I needed to go back and play some of the original. Now, granted, I didn't play all the way through the original, but I played enough to feel like I could confidently comment on how the remaster compares to the original. You still play as the Batter, wielding cryptic orders from the Judge to purify bizarre zones. The story twists still land and feel just as unsettling as in the first one. The monochrome glitch aesthetic hasn't been tamed, it's been polished. It's still dark, it's still weird, it's still unforgettable. Combat has been reworked, but in my opinion, the improvements are all for the betterment of the game. Combat still uses that unique cooldown based system, plus now you get critical hits and timing indicators that make it feel tighter. And yep, puzzles still tally up. Password keypads, repeating rooms, library mysteries, they're all still here and still clever. No new buttons, just deeper brain play. As far as graphics and sound goes, visuals are cleaner, smoother, everything you'd expect from a remaster really, but the glitchy charm still survives. Now, one of the most important things about Undertale is the soundtrack, and OFF is absolutely no different. The soundtrack for OFF goes off. It is different in style to Undertale, so, you know, don't be going in expecting it to sound like Undertale, but honestly, the music for this game is really, really good, and at times it's so impactful, just like Undertale. And the best bit about it, on the remastered version, Toby Fox himself has done some tracks for the game, so keep a sharp ear. So let's wrap up. Since its release in 2008, OFF didn't just inspire, it spread. Fan games exploded. There's a whole wiki for them, because RPG Maker couldn't encrypt the code. You could just dissect the game's innards. Mortis Ghost famously said, "I don't think it's a good idea, but I won't stop you. That's an attitude that let OFF transcend itself. Mortis embraced ambiguity. OFF is postmodern in the way that it celebrates meaninglessness. Big things happening, then suddenly nothing at all. The end. Even the ending's canonical non-canon. He lets us choose. In a world that preaches death of the author, unproductive fun time perfected the vanishing act, and through that, OFF endures. The OFF Remaster keeps the game's soul intact, even amplifies it. It looks better, it plays tighter, it still messes with your head. It's not a generic cleanup job, it's not a money cash grab, it is a thoughtful reimagining. Whether you were there at the beginning, whether you have just discovered OFF now, this is OFF done with reverence and flair. So that being said, I'm going to give OFF an 8.5 out of 10. If you like indie games, if you like weirdness, if you like anything a little bit out of the ordinary, and of course, if you like Undertale, you have to play OFF. This is a must play. I cannot stress that enough. But there is one loose end that I guess people probably want to know. Do I think OFF is better than Undertale? I don't think so, not quite. I never did a review of Undertale, but if I was to score Undertale, I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. But what I do understand and what I do appreciate is the giant shoulders that Undertale stands on. Without OFF, there is no Undertale. And just because I find Undertale that little bit better than OFF does not mean that OFF is not a game that is worth playing. There is everything to enjoy here. So yeah, there it is. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you've played OFF before, if you've got anything to tell me about OFF, if there's anything I've missed, please leave a comment below. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.